Hi everyone. Now, we are almost finished our mystery quilt, and we are now, all the units are done, and this last segment, it's going to be a long segment because you're going to learn how to do all the blocks and how to put together all the two blocks. Now we're making two separate blocks that will be put together, and I'm going to show you that. I'm doing it in a 3-segment videos, 3 separate videos for everything that I want to show you guys. But I will launch everything all at once. So there'll be video 1, 2, and 3, and then you'll know and have all the instructions that you need, along with written instructions. Will be launched all together this month. We are finishing this month. That's it. You can take all the time you want. All right. So the first block number 1, we're going to call it, is you will need 4 unit 1s, which is these ones here. 4 unit 1s. Okay. And we are going to need 1 unit 4 for month 5. So 4 unit 1s and 4 unit 4s. 1, sorry. 4 unit 1s and 1 unit 4s. All right, okay, and then we're going to need 4 unit 3s, and that looks like these. Okay, so now I just got to figure out. Okay, so they go like this. They go like this. Okay, so we have an arrow, an arrow, an arrow, and down here an arrow. Okay, and you will sew this one to this, and then this one to this, and make these into rows, just like these have been sewn together. Now, some of you have mentioned and asked if you should square up these piece blocks. Oops, this goes like that. Yeah, these piece blocks to the 4.5 that this one's cut. Now, I don't take the time to square up. When I mentioned to you to cut 4 7/8 or 5 7/8 or whatever those measurements were, as we were building these, cutting these units out and building these units, I cut them exactly what I said they were, and I don't square up. You can still see my little tags here and here at the end here and so forth. So I don't square up. But what I do, and I'm going to show you with these here. So this one and this one, that's this and this, like this. Okay? This would go like this, and we'd sew them. Now, if you have done them correct, you might have a little fullness on one of them. Well, put that one that's slightly bigger down against the feed dogs. Line up this edge. Take a few stitches here, and then line up this edge, and then make sure that these edges here are together, and then just sew them. And the feed dogs are any excess you might have, which is maybe max 1/8 of an inch. One might be slightly bigger than the other by max 1/8 of an inch. And your feed dogs, if you are not using a walking foot, and I don't recommend a walking foot if you're going to do this. If you're using a walking foot, then yes, square these things up. If you feel more comfortable squaring up to the 4.5, you do so. Just make sure that you do this, because you want to make sure that you have a 1/4 inch here, because then if you don't, you can lose these points, and you don't want to lose these points here. You want those points in. So you can leave them and just let the feed dogs do the job and take up any excess little bit that you might have, or you can square up. That is your choice. Me, I don't take the time to square up because it's time consuming and I don't have a lot of time. So now let's get moving. So once you have your rows, you're gonna sew this row to here. There goes my iron. And what I've done is, I'm gonna show you. The center one, I ironed my seams to the center piece, to the center, and I ironed these ones out here away that way. So you see they go out. You can see them here. And this one, they're in on the inside. So they will nest very nicely against each other. So I will nest these and then I will pin. I'm not a big fan of pinning, but I do take the time to pin till I get comfortable. And especially if anything is slightly bigger than, because like I said, I do not square up. I do not square my blocks too. And if you've done them right, you shouldn't have to. But that's a person, see, I have a little bit of fullness on this one. So this, and not even, I mean, it's probably 1/16 of an inch. It's not a lot. And now I'm going to line this one up. And I do have fullness here. So the one that and this is the only pinning I do. I make sure that these edges are lined up. I make sure that these seams are nesting nicely. And then I will look. And I've put my pins out this way because I might have to sew this way, or I might have to sew this way with this facing up, or maybe I might have to sew with this, depending on which side has more fabric to take up. And I'll put the one with the longest, the one that has the longest length to it, and I have a little bit of fullness right here on this one in the back. You can see it right there. Okay? You can see that. There's a little fullness. This is straight and this is not. And I will just put this one against the feed dogs, and the feed dogs is just going to gather that up and you will not know at all. So once these are sewn together, you're going to go ahead and sew this to this. The same process. And if you've squared up, everything should be fine. But if you've chosen to go my route, then you will not have any squaring up, but you need to have your feed dogs. See, I can tell right now that this length is slightly longer, but not by much. Just a little bit. So this one here will get this fabric here along here. When I put it, I'll put this against the feed dogs and it will gather it up to fit. But I have to make sure that I line up these nest these seam allowances here and here to make sure that, yeah, there is fullness. And I'm going to show you this. I'm going to pin this and I'm going to show you quickly. I hope I don't stab myself. So if you look at this piece here at the bottom is longer than this piece here at the top. And what I'll do is I'll match these ends up, which they match up fine, and I'll match these ends up and they'll match fine. But there's a little fullness between this one, and the middle block or module, and that's it. So anyways, you need to make 18 of these, okay? And that is block number 1, and we are going to move on the next video onto block number 2. So stay tuned. Like I said, everything's going to be launched on the same day for the finishing of the quilt. Okay, so stay tuned. I'm going to start working on showing you the block number 2.